I'm here with Robert from JuiceLink. Hi, Robert.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing great.
Excellent. Now, Robert's going to pretty much run down with us some of the basics on capturing quality audio.
Yep.
Now, audio for me, because I'm in production, it's sort of like the last thing that I've really tackled, but it's really kind of one of the most important.
It's really very important. It's one of the things that people who've been to film school and things like that, it's one of the things that they think of last. But from your experience of the people who are viewing your videos, it's actually quite important. So I thought, today what I could do is just sort of run down, some best practices on how to select microphones, how to properly use microphones, selecting other equipment and things like that. So let me just say that the one thing that I want everybody to remember, the most important takeaway in every step of your process, the most important thing is to optimize the signal-to-noise performance. So you cannot remove noise from electronic equipment like recording devices or cameras. So the name of the game is to optimize the signal to noise. So get as much signal as you can and minimize the noise.
Okay.
And the noise can be not just electronic noise, it can also be echo from your room, it can be room tone.
So
it can
room
be
tone, ambient sound.
Background noise, wind noise, everything. You want to minimize the noise, maximize the signal.
So how would we do that?
So the first most important thing that you have to do is get the microphone close.
Okay.
Every time you double the distance the microphone is from your mouth, you're losing half of your signal. So let's say your ambient noise level is here, and you move the microphone further away, you're losing signal, and you're decreasing your signal-to-noise performance, and you can never get that back.
Got it.
The signal that goes into the front end of the microphone.
Okay.
So the most important thing is get the microphone close.
Okay.
And then after that, what you want to do is select the right type of microphone. Use the right tool. So different microphones have different polar patterns. So you obviously, if you look at a polar pattern, you'll see where the microphone is accepting signal and where the microphone is rejecting signal.
Right. So for example, with the shotgun mic, this has a pretty narrow pickup pattern. So for example, there's a mic here, and there's mics here, but then this part actually has metal. So this is sort of covered. So can you demonstrate what the pickup pattern would be on that?
So the polar pattern for a shotgun microphone, actually the microphone element is back here. And then this is an interference tube. So this is just a tube with nothing inside of it. And so the pickup pattern for a shotgun microphone, it's very narrow on the front. It rejects from the sides, and then it has a rear lobe where it's actually accepting signal from the back. So when I say use the right tool, let's say you have a noise source that's over here, like there's a lawnmower going off there or something like that. You want to understand your microphone's polar pattern, so you put the nulls and reject the sources of noise so they're not being picked up by the microphone, and then make sure that the microphone's element is picking up the person who's speaking.
I see.
So in the case of a shotgun microphone, the rejection pattern is like a donut. It's being rejected all around in this direction. So if you're at a art and wine festival or something like that, and you want to get the best signal-to-noise performance, you want to get a shotgun microphone close, and you want to have it nearly pointed all the way down or nearly pointed all the way up. So the rejection pattern is all around you. It's rejection.
But you're picking up that person's voice.
But you're picking up the person's voice, exactly.
Got it.
When you see somebody have a shotgun microphone on a camera and it's pointed directly to the person that's talking, that's actually the worst orientation that you can have the microphone. Sure, it's picking up the person that's speaking, but it's also picking up all the background noise behind them. And it's also picking up all the background noise behind the camera because of the rear lobe.
So would you be better off in that situation with a lav, like a lav mic?
So that's another option also, a lavalier microphone, which gets the microphone obviously very close. The polar pattern that I prefer for a lavalier is an omnidirectional.
Okay.
So an omnidirectional, it accepts from all directions, sounds from all directions. And with a lavalier, the reason I prefer that is, the lavalier, when it's pinned to somebody's clothes, it could be, pointing in a little bit different direction. And if it were directional, you may not be picking up the person's voice very directly.
Got it.
And another little trick that you can do with a lavalier is actually have the lavalier, if it's an omnidirectional, point down. And the reason you point it down is then the plosives from the person speaking, you know, the Peter Piper picked a pepper,
Right.
aren't being picked up by the microphone as being a pop.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that's a nice little trick that you can do with lavaliers also.
Got it.
So lavaliers, I go for omnidirectional. So yes, a handheld microphone is another important tool for your toolkit. They're not very expensive. The directional pattern that I would recommend for a handheld mic, again, is an omnidirectional, which is a little bit counterintuitive, but in directional microphones, when you hold them close to where you're speaking, there's something called proximity effect. And what that is when you hold it very close, a directional microphone very close, it becomes very bassy and distorted. Omnidirectionals don't suffer from proximity effect. So for a stick microphone, handheld microphone, I prefer an omnidirectional. You can get it really close and you don't have to worry about that distorted sound. Let me mention another quick type of microphone, and that's a hypercardioid microphone. So a hypercardioid microphone is typically used indoors as opposed to a shotgun microphone. A shotgun microphone suffers the advantage of a shotgun microphone is this interference pattern, but also its disadvantage is this interference pattern. The interference pattern, when a plane wave hits it, it creates a pattern inside the microphone where there will be no signal present at the capsule, okay? But it gets confused with time-delayed versions of the same signal. So if you have echo, okay, like if you're indoors, okay, then you get some very off-colored sounds with it. So that's why, like in Hollywood studios and things like that, indoors they'll typically use a hypercardioid microphone. And the polar pattern of a hypercardioid microphone, it accepts from the front, it has a null at about 30-degree angles in the back, and it has a rear lobe. So what you'll typically do with a hypercardioid is indoors, you know, you might have people that are working the camera, people that are behind the scenes and stuff like that. You'll tilt the microphone such that the polar pattern, the null of the polar pattern is canceling the people who might be talking, the crew, exactly, and then just picking up the people who are speaking. And that's typically what they use for an indoor boom microphone in Hollywood studios. Now, I mentioned that, you know, the shotgun has the disadvantage of colored sound, but if you get the shotgun really, really close, even if you are indoors, again, it's all about signal to noise. The signal is going to be much higher than the echo, and so you can get away still with a shotgun microphone indoors, but a Hollywood film crew probably wouldn't do that. So.
I see. So when you're choosing a microphone, you can always see what the polar pattern is for that particular microphone.
You need to understand what the polar pattern is so you can use the microphone optimally.
Would those be the main principles then, you would say, to get some clean audio?
So those are the main principles when it comes to microphone. Get the microphone close, take advantage of the polar pattern.
Okay.
Now, you also have to be concerned about your recording equipment, okay? So, you know, cameras and recorders, they have inherent noise associated with their amplifiers and things like that. And typically, consumer type recording equipment can be fairly noisy. So the way that you get better signal-to-noise performance from cameras and things like that is you manually throttle back the noisy amplification in the camera, and then you replace the noisy gain with clean gain from a juiced link low-noise preamplifier.
So now, what is the real benefit of having something like a preamp when you're getting audio?
So the way that you get better signal-to-noise performance when you're using devices which have noisy amplification in them, like cameras or recorders,
And by noisy amplification, what do you mean exactly? You're picking up some of the electrical signals?
So it's the electronic noise that this will generate will limit the signal-to-noise performance that you can get. So before we talked about noise, it can be background or room noise or echo. Now we're talking about the electronic noise of the recording device. So if that electronic noise is too high, that's going to limit your signal-to-noise performance. Okay. So the way that you get better signal-to-noise performance is to manually throttle back the amplifiers in the camera. So now you've got lower noise, but you've also got lower signal is what the problem is. But so you replace the noisy gain with clean gain from a juiced link low noise preamplifier, and now you've got decent signal to noise performance. So before, Poor signal-to-noise performance, throttle back the noisy amplifiers in the camera, replace the noisy gain with clean gain from a juice link low-noise preamplifier. That's how you get better signal-to-noise performance.
Got it. So let's sum it up. Quality microphone, get your mic close.
Use it properly, meaning get it close, use it with the proper orientation. Use a juice link low-noise preamplifier with your camera to get better signal-to-noise performance from the limitations of the camera.
All right, thank you so much, Robert. I learned a lot about audio. That was a real basic, rundown of 3 things. So if you guys want to check out anything that Robert was talking about, it's all going to be living on the blog at oliviatech.com. And stay tuned because we actually have another segment coming up, and it's just going to be about the Juice Link preamps. That's going to be exciting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Make sure to follow on Twitter and Facebook.